You are now experiencing the digital life with Kevin Lockett.
Hey everybody, welcome to the digital life. You know, I'm a big fan of people who believe in diversity. In fact, I always felt like people from diverse backgrounds or had different points of view tend to make organizations stronger than those where everyone thinks and acts the same. I'm also a big fan of people who believe in diversity when it comes to technology. Van Jones has done great work with Yes We Code across the country. While in Cleveland, today's guest Mel McGee launched We Can Code It to train women and minorities the art of computer coding through a variety of workshops and boot camps. In my estimation, we need more Mel McGees in the world because she's helping to bridge the gap for those underrepresented in the tech industry and creating a new path of success. I enjoyed my discussion with Mel McGee, and as you will hear, her love for technology and helping others is quite evident. So without further ado, here's my conversation with We Can Code It's Mel McGee.
Okay, we're talking to Mel McGee from We Can Code It. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you?
I am fine. So while I was doing my research on you, I learned that you've been coding since you were about 10 years old.
Yeah, I started as a kid.
You started as a kid. So I guess
Yeah.
my first question to you is, what was the first computer that you had?
Oh, Commodore 64. Way back when.
Yeah, that seemed to be a common thing. I think everyone had a Commodore 64 starting out. But where I played Atari games and played Pac-Man, you pretty much took it to a whole different level.
Yeah, I did. I enjoyed it. I really did.
So the reason we're talking today is about We Can Code It. And how did the organization begin?
Well, let's see. We were at, and when I say we, I'm talking about co-founder Shana Misko and I were at Launch House over in Shaker Heights. And we were hanging out there, and very soon after we started going there, people realized that I knew how to code and had information to share. So people would start coming up to me, asking me questions. And, you know, I was happy to answer. It's just, you know, it would be at inconvenient times. So I one day I just looked up at Tina and I said, you know what, we need to start a class. Let's just do a class and we'll invite everybody with questions to the class. And the people who started talking to me actually were women at first. And I think that they were feeling, it seemed to me, given what everybody was saying, was that they just didn't feel comfortable asking, you know, guys these questions. They felt, I guess, a little intimidated that they didn't know something. So we decided to just invite the ladies to the class. And, you know, it sort of snowballed from there with people asking us for more and more classes, different types of classes. And then, of course, now the logical conclusion of this, or the next step, actually, I don't want to say conclusion, is the coding boot camps that we're doing that are rapid, accelerated learning in computer science.
When you started coding, because you mentioned how women today had questions for you about coding, but what was it like when you were coding? Because you learned very early, but there weren't really a lot of women back then who were doing a lot of coding that you can talk to. So how did you navigate during that process?
You know, I'll tell you, when I was really young, one of the reasons I started coding was because we didn't have, like, programs for my computer. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if my folks just didn't know to get any programs, but, you know, there's this huge floppy drive in that old Commodore 64, and so I just opened the manual and I thought, what can I do with this? You know, so that's how I started. I'm not going to ignore the fact, though, that I had, you know, my dad was a big technophile. You know, he was really into it, and I think he always thought that, like, oh, Mel can do this. You know, let's have her get into it. She likes this kind of stuff. So he always strongly promoted my interest in computer science. Even after I graduated with undergrad degrees in anthropology and psychology, you know, he's like, no, you should go into coding. I'm telling you. So I was pretty lucky. Most women didn't have that. It was usually the boys that were getting the computers and stuff like that. My dad really pushed me towards it and introduced me to it. And my mom, of course, always told me, oh, you can be anything you want. So I didn't have the same influences that I think a lot of other people had, so I was fortunate.
So even with that background, you had a strong sense about computers when you were young, but you went into psychology and anthropology because it sounded like you were headed towards computers, and then you went to the left a little bit. What made you go a different direction?
Well, I was a kid, Everything was fun, right? I enjoyed learning about different things. I very much enjoyed psychology. I still do to this day. I love psychology. I love anthropology. They don't make sense for me as careers, but I'm able to use those skills, as, when I'm consulting someone, when I'm just talking to someone, listening to their needs. I very much use my skills. And in web development, just understanding, user interface, even in software development, user interfaces and stuff, asking people, having good communication skills, and understanding how people have different perspectives they're bringing in. I still use those skills today, holistically. But what derailed me from computer science? Well, I think I liked other things too. And I think, getting out on my own, and maybe it was a little bit of a breakaway, like, no, I'm going to do what I want, Dad, type of, sticking my tongue at him a little bit, until I got that out of my system and thought, no, I really do love this just for me. It's not doing it for him. I am doing it for me.
Yeah, your story reminds me of Steve Jobs in a lot of ways because he was like that. I mean, he had a strong sense of tech, but he followed his own path, and then when it was time to get into his profession, he came back into computers, but the experiences that he gained from his different travels actually helped when it came to Apple.
Absolutely. I mean, well, I think that, Steve Jobs was a remarkable man, and just having my name in the same sentence is, generous. However, I do feel that there is a strong yearning for that in technology. There's a huge amount of creativity and different skills you can bring into technology that I think a lot of people outside of the field don't know about.
So for people who are getting into coding, let's say they get into We Can Code It. What's the main difference between web developers and software engineers? Because I think people hear these terms, and some people think they're similar, but they're very different.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, old school, way back when, none of these terms existed. It was, are you a webmaster? That was the big term. So, all of these terms start popping up because, people start defining, their jobs in different ways. A software engineer, a software engineer is a person who not only knows how to write the code, like, the syntax of the code, but they can create applications. They can put it together. They know how to, write recipes for things. That's what primarily a software engineer does. Now, the lines are getting blurred these days between web development, web developers, and software engineers a bit because so much coding is being done online. Online applications, that's now software engineer, So the lines are getting blurred. A lot of times people will think of software engineers as someone Basically, it's a minor difference from my perspective. If a person is doing coding using a web, web as their base versus like a desktop base, and web developers are increasingly becoming more sophisticated. However, I would say from a web development standpoint, you might have to deal with, e-commerce, whereas a software engineer might not deal with e-commerce. They're going to deal with a business application or something like that. Web developers can deal with, they can help create, pretty remarkable websites that aren't necessarily for an application itself. But a lot of times people get confused what a web designer is versus a web developer. I want to talk about that for a second. And a web designer is responsible more for the look, the look and the feel of the site. And a web developer is the person that takes that and codes it. so it actually functions. Now, you can be both. I certainly love to play around with interfaces, and I love to play around with graphics and search engine optimization. I think to be a great web developer, you need to know more front-end skills. And software developers we tend to think of as being stronger at back-end skills. But a well-rounded engineer/developer, you can do pretty much anything. You can work in the front end of sites, with their look and feel, their interface, as well as the more functional aspects of the back end, databases, stuff like that.
So once I get involved with We Can Code It, what type of things would I learn?
You learn the whole thing, the whole stack. So in 12 weeks, you have an intense experience, but a very fun one, where you are learning. You start with front-end development, so something that you could walk away with and do some web development. So you're going to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You're going to learn about some data binding, which gets pretty fun. It's very interactive, fun stuff with data. Then you're going to have a capstone project where you're creating a real-world website or web application for yourself or someone, for the community. It's your choice. We move on after that to back-end development, where we start teaching the highly sought-after and well-paying .NET skills with C#, which is very much in use. You'll learn about relational databases like SQL databases. We'll talk about big data. We will investigate how all of these things get pulled together to create an application, be it something more like an app that would be for software engineering, or something more that's more front-end oriented. So you get to choose, and you end up with your own unique product at the end, and we introduce you to employers.
Now, I'm a content guy. I love creating content, but I'm starting learning coding. I'm starting with Code Academy, so it's almost like baby steps. It's almost like Sesame Street for coding, so it's good for me. But when I'm within your program, how intensive is it? Is there different speeds to it, or is it just you're just thrown in there like you're trying to swim and everybody just learns?
We don't let anyone drown. I will never let anyone drown. You're allowed to investigate your own special interests. I'm not going to force you to love, databases when you really love doing, front-end work. We will show you how to do back-end work, but, the choice is ultimately yours. It is intense, but it is fun. It is super fun, because you're creating things that you are interested in. You're not sitting through lectures all day. I'm not going to be sitting there reading out of some book to you. No way. I teach you what you need to learn, and you take it from there. There's a lot of hands-on learning and a lot of, you get to look things up. I come over, I help you, I show you new techniques to do things. You're working with a partner so that you and your partner are, able to talk about things, figure out the best way to do them. And during this whole time, you're learning all of the nuances that you can't find at Code Academy, that you can't find from, a person who only knows maybe C# or only knows databases. You're going to get a very well-rounded, holistic education, and you're going to be doing it for 8 hours a day.
But there's a cost to the program. I mean, it's intensive, and you're learning a lot of skills, but there is a cost. Oh,
there is a cost. We try to make it affordable. There are some boot camps that cost nearly $20,000 for 10 weeks. Our goal is to help people find work, and diversify technology, because technology is so the opposite of diverse. We need a lot of different people that aren't there right now. So given that, we brought the price down to $10,000 for 3 months. Now, given that, we have a $1,000 award for anybody, first of all, who has a household annual income of less than $47,500 a year, or if you are in any of the following underrepresented tech groups, including women, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Native Americans. On top of that, we are desperately trying to seek out funds for our students. We don't want anyone to be turned away because they can't afford it. So we're being really thoughtful about that and trying to work on a individual basis with students to help figure out how we're going to get them through, how we're going to make this happen, and if it's through a scholarship or some kind of loan or some kind of payment plan. We want to help people learn. That's our goal.
All right. What have been some of the success stories that came along? Because you've been around for a little while. What have been some of the success stories from the workshops?
Yeah, my favorite story is when we were teaching kids, because first of all, they're just cute. They're just cute as can be. And we had this group of kids who were teaching, and, it's a 3-hour workshop. And these are like 8-year-old kids, and they're sitting there, and we're teaching them. We're throwing a lot at them. They're learning a lot in a very short period of time. And it was a virtual pet workshop, and it was so cute because during the middle, I'm like, wow, they really need a break. Let's let them have a break. So we had donuts and orange juice and slushies, all this stuff there for them. And I told them, okay, break time. Let's everybody get up, have some donuts. And we had tons of donuts there. None of them, not a single one, stopped coding. It was, and so, it just made my day. It was, to see them actually love it as much as they did. That story really warms my heart a lot.
Well, yeah, I think I always think kids should be kids. But I think kids have a great capacity to learn. I think they can learn more than people give them credit for because for the most part, they don't have any bad habits and they're very curious. So I think from a young age, kids should actually learn how to code, just for the basics, so it can help them later in life.
Yeah, and they can speak the language that's becoming more and more, based on programming, based on, what is called computational thinking. That's really the way the world is working. You don't want to be left out and without having an understanding of how the world is working around you. It's, nearly as valuable as reading, in my opinion.
Right. And like you mentioned earlier, there are boot camps coming up. And the boot camps are for men and women, but you focused on women for your first boot camp. So why did you do a women's only boot camp first?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we started as a women's group. We started with our class at Launch House as a women's group, knowing, and the more we got into it, the more we learned, about all of the issues going on, from societally, so we learned about women who are in STEM careers like computer science making 28% more than their non-STEM counterparts, and that helps bridge this, the wage gap based on gender. So that was interesting to us. It's the short story is that that's our largest group of followers right now, and it's not only paying homage to our beginnings, it's also hitting our demographic really. So we want to see other women in the field. The more and more we investigated, the more I've learned just diversity in general is a huge problem. The same kind of pay increases occur for other people as well. African Americans, Hispanic Americans make 29% more when they're working in STEM than their non-STEM counterparts. So, and computer science is half of STEM. That's who is employed. And when I say STEM, it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So it just makes sense that employers want coders. Smart employers value diversity because diversity helps their teams, it makes everybody happier, and it helps their bottom lines. And, people need jobs, period. People need jobs. There's plenty of jobs in computers. I just, want to share with other people the experience that there's so many different types of jobs you can get in IT. So our women-only boot camps simply stemmed from that. the co-ed boot camps are focused on diversity, and because that's what our mission is. It's our goal.
If you could talk to most tech companies, IT companies, about reaching out to increase their diversity, what advice would you give them?
I'd say, first of all, studies are out there. So if they want hard evidence, there are studies out there showing that it helps. And diversity helps their teams. It makes teams happier. It makes people on their teams happier. It improves innovation. It helps their teams innovate more. Plus, they are 45% more likely to have more profitability in their markets and 70% likelier to gain new markets. So if they want some hard numbers outside of this is the right thing to do, it's the good thing to do, the numbers are there to support diversity in general.
Switch gears for a second. How do you feel about how wearable tech has progressed since you started dabbling in it back in the late 90s?
Yeah, it's interesting. It really is. I mean, I was playing around with it and thinking. Part of me getting into it was one day I got incredibly frustrated because I had started my company back then, and we were crazy busy. I wouldn't get sleep. I mean, I'd be up for 3 days in a row, have maybe crash for 6 hours, then get up, do another 3 days of work, and I was never getting out of the office, and I was tired of it. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could have? This is before cell phones, mind you. We didn't have like iPhones and Androids, to compute stuff on the go. And I thought, I really want to be able to walk around and do some of my work. This is crazy. I'm just stuck here inside all day. I was getting this like day glow, like green screen computer glow about me, it felt. So, how they have evolved, then it sort of felt like it dropped off for a while. Everybody got very quiet. The wearable communities that I was involved in, they just, people stopped posting stuff. Then cell phones came out, iPhones came out. So it became slightly different, and there was a strong feel that it was going to take a route that had to deal with iPhones and Androids and the like. So I think now we're still at an early phase of wearable technology. There are a lot of different players and a lot of different people positioning their products. I think it's great. I'm excited that more people are getting involved. I love the idea of textiles, being able to use computing to do things. And they were doing this way back when, by the way. But, like heart monitoring, things for your well-being. There's the Fitbit. That's fantastic. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. I can't wait to see where it goes next.
And you're so versed in the tech. I mean, is there any non-techie things that you do?
You wouldn't think so, but I do once in a while. I think I love hanging out with my family, believe it or not. When I have the opportunity, I take it. I have a daughter who's 11, and, I can't get enough of her. But let's see, what do I like to do otherwise? I love karaoke. If somebody said, hey, come karaoke, I'd raise my hand and jump on board. Stuff like that, dancing, typical human stuff,
So what's your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, I do Blondie, Heart of Glass. That's my song. Yeah.
I figured you're more of a Rapture gal, but I go Heart of
Glass.
Oh,
I love Rapture too, but no, it's Heart of Glass. Not many people have Rapture.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Mel McGee, thank you for the conversation. If people need to check out We Can Code It, where can they go? It's
wecancodeit.org.
And when does the boot camp start?
March 9th is our first boot camp, and then we have other boot camps following every quarter. So the next ones will be up in the summer, and we have 2 offerings in the summer. We have a full-time for women in the summer, and we have a part-time that is co-ed that I'm very excited about. And then again in the fall, and we will continue and increase our offerings and increase our part-time offerings as well.
And I think I read someplace that you releasing a book this year or something.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Because I don't have enough to do. So
yeah, I'm wondering how you squeeze that in, but yeah, you have a book.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It was great. We got when I say we, I mean We Can Code It, got contacted by a publisher, a great publisher, and when does this ever happen? It sort of feels like we were in a movie, getting contacted by other people to say, write a book. And it's a book about using redstone in Minecraft. It's geared towards kids, and it teaches them engineering skills through playing in Minecraft. So they're going to be making an amusement park bit by bit. So like amusement park dunk tank, roller coasters, fireworks displays, dodge the arrows maze, and it's all built. And kids don't even know they're learning about computational thinking concepts and engineering while they're doing this, but it completely translates directly to those concepts. They learn a lot of great things, a lot of logic and the like. And we're still continuing our kids' workshops, by the way. A lot of them are at libraries now, and we invite libraries, educators, schools, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, whomever, to give us a ring. And we have workshops in Minecraft and Scratch and a few other things available for those groups as well.
I was going to close with that, but your name Mel. So you're a woman in tech. You're very good at what you do. But when you go to meetings, do some guy expect a guy to come in because your name is Mel and you walk in?
Absolutely. Happens all the time. It happens all the time. But I'm Mel. That's what am I supposed to say?
Well, I felt bad because when I contacted you, I said, hey, Mr. McGee, I want to interview you for my podcast. Like, oh, my God, it's a woman.
Oh, yeah, no big deal. It's not a big deal at all. It happens all the time, and, I just smile. It happens all the time. But, no, I'm glad that you did contact me. It was great.
Yeah, me too. Well, thanks a lot, Mel.
Hey, thanks, Kevin.
I want to thank Mel McGee for being a great guest on The Digital Life. You can learn more about We Can Code It at wecancodeit.org. That's wecancodeit.org. And if you're a woman interested in coding, the March 9th Bootcamp in Cleveland is free. Just make sure you apply by March 1st, 2015. That's March 1st, 2015. And if you miss past Digital Life shows, go to iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, or digitalkev.com. Before I go, I have a Twitter question for you. Tweet me at Kevin Lockett and tell me, where did you learn how to code? Was it in school, online, a friend, a family member, YouTube? Tweet me at Kevin Lockett with the hashtag KLCode. That's a hashtag KLCode, and tell me, where did you learn how to code? All right, everybody. It's The Digital Life. I'm Kevin Lockett, and I'm out.
The Digital Life with Kevin Lockett.